Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today as there's some troubling news early this morning on January 5th of 2020. An announcement that came out late last night, and I think people are just starting to hear about it at this moment, first thing in the morning, and I'm very troubled about it. I want to share it with you because it seems that to save our children, some people are willing to destroy our children. And I think every parent, I think everyone in America, everyone in the world should be concerned by this news. But we're going to talk about that in just one second. Before we start, if this is the first time that you are seeing the channel, we want to welcome you and we thank you for joining us. And we want you to know that we do long-form political commentary. Now, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to be able to hear your voice in terms of your chats, your tweets, even your phone calls from anywhere in the world. And we do that because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in free speech. Your right to be able to say what you think. It's unalienable. And in fact, it's something not just for America, it's for everyone in the world. And whether your government agrees, whether the internet overlords agree or not, we believe in your right to speak. And we hope you'll join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to share your voice on the issues that affect us all. With that said, here it is. It's currently 6:25 a.m. on January 5th. And I'm getting up in my day and I saw this news announcement and I had to stop and I had to make this comment. I have to speak about this. It won't take long, but I do desperately want to hear from everyone, especially parents, about this issue because I think we have gone far too far. It's just too much. We are literally destroying our children in the name of saving our children. I truly believe that's the point that we have come to. And we've been seeing this for some time. Think about it. In 2020, we had to lock down the nation. We had to lock down the world to protect everyone. And we had to seal in. We had to basically put everybody into solitary confinement. Now, this had one of the worst effects amongst our children, as you can see here from NBC News. And they were talking about the reports from the CDC. On June 11th of 2021, we saw the CDC report and NBC News tell us that youth suicide attempts soared because of the pandemic. But I understand, it's a pandemic. It's one of the worst situations, unprecedented, as we are told. And so that was extreme, but it's okay because they've gotten better, right? And we're taking care of our kids better. Except then once they were able to go back to schools, once they were getting taught again, whether it be remote or in class, well, then we started having other situations like what we saw here on April 20th of 2021. Kids are getting remote learning, and then we find out, as parents learn what the kids are actually being taught, that applied critical race theory is being taught to children as young as 8 years of age, that they're being taught and read books by their teachers. First, the teachers are apologizing for being born and literally being born in an area that wasn't inclusive enough and being born the wrong color, and to hate police. This is what's being taught to our children in April. And when parents found out about this across the country, they got upset. And they were rightfully upset because to be able to protect our children in Loudon County in Virginia, we found out that to protect our children who have different points of view, who are gender fluid, as they call it, that the school boards allowed a young girl to be sexually assaulted. The criminal who did this has been convicted of rape. And this was something that was covered up, hidden from the parents in that community. And when they found out, like this father, the father of the girl who had been sexually assaulted, well, he rightly lost his mind and was upset because protecting the children should never equate to hurting children. You don't protect one child to just give up the life of another child. That's wrong. We all agree about that in our society. And that's why we saw elections that resulted in the way they did, because people were rightly upset. And school boards across this nation in 2021 were confronted by parents who said, "What are you doing to my kids?" They've already gone through enough in 2020. And the reaction from the Biden-Harris administration, the response from the Department of Justice has been, well, we have to pick on the parents. The parents are the problem. The parents have to be investigated by the FBI. The full weight and power of the United States federal government must come down on parents for interfering with school boards that are teaching children to judge other children by the color of their skin. That we should investigate parents for being upset when their children are being sexually assaulted and that is being swept under the rug. That parents are the ones who are at fault when they follow the government's mandate to keep their children in essentially solitary confinement. And then we find out at the end of the year, or at the end of 2021, we found out that even kids in college, students there, are being reinforced that this idea of applied critical race theory, this segregation, whether you want to call it voluntary segregation or safe spaces or just racism, it's something that's going on not just to our kids who are in grade school, not just to the kids in high school, but also in college. They're getting fed this constant diet telling them that if you're black, you're a victim. If you're white, you're evil, that you must obey the government, that there is no other choice. And parents aren't being told about these programs. They're not being shown exactly what is being taught to the kids and our young adults. They're not told where their money, their tuition, your taxes are going to provide for. So our kids are in trouble. They are being sacrificed for the political ideology of progressivism, of socialism, that the government is going to protect you if you happen to be the right type of person. To save the patient, we're killing the patient, it seems, in this case. But that's what happened in 2020, 2021. These are the things that happened. And this morning, January 5th, 2022, I wake up and I get to see this news story. It's reported by Channel 7 News, ABC, out of Boston. But it happened to take place in New York State. It happened to take place in Long Island. To be exact, it was in Nassau County. And you have to wonder, there was a teacher who took it upon herself to give an injection that we believe is the pandemic medication and injected that into a student without the permission of the parent, without the knowledge of the parent, that they just decided to do this. Now, rightfully, this teacher has been arrested for what they have done. They were arrested because they weren't authorized to administer vaccines. That's the reason why they were arrested, because they didn't have the authorization to give this vaccine, not because the parents weren't told, not because this was an adult abusing a child, not because of any reason other than, they weren't approved by the government. So the government and the regulations aren't upset of what was being done, which is child abuse. This is a underage child this happened to. It wasn't because of the child abuse, but because, well, they're not authorized. That New York State's government was okay with the concept that this teacher decided to take it upon themselves to administer medications to a child without knowing their medical history and without speaking to the parent, just because that teacher knows better. They're smarter than everyone else. They know what is good for children. Parents don't, but the teacher does, because the government told them this is a mandate. It must be done. Or at least that's the reasoning that we can gather from this. There is more news coming about this, and I may be speculating slightly on what was the mindset of this teacher when they did this, but given the environment that we're looking at, doesn't it sound like that's exactly what it was? That was the mindset of this teacher? That I'm smarter than the parents, I'm doing the best thing. This is what the government wants done anyway, so I'll do it. Now we should have to ask the question, why does a teacher have extra doses of a medication just laying about their home to be able to administer this to a child? And we have to ask the question, how many times has this happened? Why does this, if this teacher has extra doses just available to them, a non-medical professional has these doses, and she's doing this to students, we have to ask the question, has she done it before? Have her colleagues done this before? Did the school know this was happening, or has the school allowed this to happen? Has this happened in classrooms or on the school property? And how many times? And if it's happening in Long Island, in New York, is it happening in New York City? Is it happening in New York State? Is this something that we're now going to see happen in California, if it hasn't already happened? Or maybe in Michigan, or in New Jersey, or any of the other bluer than blue progressive states around the nation that they have mandated that this must happen. And so these teachers who believe in the government above people, who believe that they are smarter than the individual parents, so much so that they're willing to teach children how to hate other children and other adults, that they are willing to go out there and they must teach children that they have to hate the police, that they have to protect those children from parents who would rightly be upset about the sexual abuse of their children. How often has this happened? How often is this happening across this nation? It's a difficult question. And there's no way to know the answer. There's no investigation that's going on across the nation to find out about this. This is going to be a very quiet story, I expect. I expect that you're not going to see that all of New York schools are going to come out with an announcement from the superintendent that's going to tell every single teacher, don't you dare do this. You should not have these medications around in your homes, and you should not be self-administering medications to yourself or your children or to any of the children in the schools, especially without the permission of parents. You're not going to see the presidents of colleges like Binghamton University. You're not going to hear Harvey Stenger come out and say to his faculty, you should not be administering medications to your students. You're not going to see that notification. You should. We should hear from all of our elected officials. We should hear from our Congress members. We should hear from our assembly members. We should hear from our state senators. We should be hearing from the governor of New York denouncing this ahead of time before we find out that this is something that is happening on a continuous basis, that this is something that is considered okay and been swept under the rug like so many other stories we have covered on this channel. I'm really sorry that I have to start off your day with this news. I'm sorry that you can't sip coffee and just relax and say, I'm going to start my Wednesday on a good note. I think this is outrageous. I think we have gone too far. We have allowed fear and we have allowed government overreach to go so far that there are individuals who are in control of our children that are making decisions just well beyond anything that could be considered in their realm and their wheelhouse. Maybe you're not upset about this. Maybe you think it's a one-off and I'm just being overly excited. And you know what? If this is a one-time event, it's not happened anywhere else in the United States since 2020 to this day. If it hasn't ever happened before, maybe I am overreacting. And then again, maybe I'm not. I'd rather be ahead of this and denounce this and say that we should never allow this and that this is a bridge too far and no teacher should ever dare to think that they can do this to our children, that this is child abuse and that this should be prosecuted as child abuse to the fullest extent of the law, and she should be made an example of so that no one would dare think of doing this again in any state throughout the United States. And it should be an example internationally so that in other countries like the United Kingdom, like in Israel, like in France, Germany, especially in Australia and New Zealand, that teachers and individuals who think they are the power over our children, that they have the backing of the government, don't decide to just start making medical decisions and endangering the lives of children. I'd rather be ahead of the curve and be outrageous and outraged and upset about this because and find out that there was no need to be than to take this calmly and find out I'm wrong. God forbid this were to lead to the death of even one child. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you think I'm just too excited about this. I've had too much coffee in the morning, I haven't had enough sleep, and I saw the story and I overreacted. Maybe that's what you think. And if you do, please tell me why. Tell me why I shouldn't be upset about this. Why, given what we have seen as a pattern over the last 2 years, why is this something I shouldn't be upset about? That parents in New York State and across this country and around the world, that this is something they shouldn't be concerned about, that this isn't a question that should be asked at a school board meeting, that elected officials shouldn't be concerned about this. Tell me why. But until then, I am upset. I think you should be upset. And I think our elected leaders, superintendents, and teachers around this nation should take proactive action to limit their power and limit their actions and to reassure parents and the public that the next generation of our children will be protected at all times, always, first and foremost. I look forward to hearing what you think about this. We thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.